Yeah, I'm here in Kuala Lumpur still, and I wanted to run through a few things: travel annoyances, travel issues, cultural issues, and kind of pose a question to you: how would you deal with these situations? And I'm not the pillar of behavior to model in any way, shape, or form. Never have been, but I'm trying to get better, and I'm trying to understand and trying to, understand how this all works. And what I've kind of come to in my mind over time is that no matter, where you come from or where you're going or where you're at, you're always going to find sensitive spots where, people can slip in and annoy you. Little spots of annoyance. And, when annoyance gets too cumulatively great, it turns into frustration and anger and all that, right? All basic, simple concepts, because I'm a simple person. So there are things that I have a real struggle with when I'm traveling. And, I've got a couple funny stories and a couple little more serious stories to tell you about that. And then, pose a question to you, what are your issues when you travel? And then the other question is, how would you handle these situations? And especially if you're thinking about going expat or traveling for extended periods of time, I think these are important questions to really put some thought into before you leave and before you head out on the road. One of them is, so that's kind of what I want to do with this video. My biggest one is I don't like getting yelled at, right? I don't like people yelling at me. And some people say this isn't being yelled at, but for me, it's not the words, it's the tone and the aggressiveness of the speech that really I struggle with. It's that yelling that I really don't do well with. Sorry, I love these little fishies from the airport. And I've had that happen, not a lot. It's actually really rare. But where it's really common and why it's on the top of my mind right now is I'm trying to sort out where to go, in the next few months. And my original plan was to go back to the Philippines. But my 3 or 4 weeks in the Philippines really reminded me of a lot of things I forgot. And it's easier to deal with on a short term, but if I'm looking at staying there months, I don't know how well I'm going to handle it. And it's the fact that when you walk out the door in the Philippines, you get yelled at. Drake, sir, sir. And, it doesn't bother me, a day or two, but after a week, when the same guy is yelling at you, or you're walking by a trike, and there's a guy who appears to be sleeping, he sees you, wakes up, and yells in your ear, or, there's other issues, and I'll get to this one story in a second, but that whole concept of being yelled at all the time, and just a couple quick stories, then I'll get to the one that's really relevant. I went to Puerto Galera a few years back, and you get off the ferry, and I'm trying to work my phone, trying to, a lot of times, and this is where, I get really frustrated, is I'm sitting there trying to work my phone, I've got my phone out, and I'm doing this, and I'm trying to sort out the hotel situation, and there's all these guys, there's a big line of trikes, and they're all yelling at me, and I'm like, no, and I actually just walk away, and a couple of them follow me and start yelling at me, trike, sir, trike. It's like, whoa, no, I'm just trying to use my phone. Can you give me a second to fucking think? And, they got upset with me for saying no. And I was like, I don't want a trike right now. Maybe sooner, maybe later. And so then I finally sort out which hotel I'm going to, which direction I'm going. So I didn't know, at the time, I didn't know if I was going to, there's two options. You can go to, was it White Beach, or I think it's White Beach or Puerto Galera, the port. Sabang Beach or something. I can't remember, but there's two ways to go, north or south. And so I was trying to, I hadn't booked a hotel, and I was trying to figure out which way I wanted to go and respond to a couple of messages and just, be on my phone, doing me. And since I wasn't busy, attentive enough to do them with them, they were getting angry with me. So then I go back, I finally sort out where I'm going. I go back and I ask, how much to go here? And they're like, I don't remember the numbers, but the first guy was outrageous. And so I walk away, and then they start barking numbers, it drops 100 or 200 pesos every time, every step you take. And finally I walk up the street a little bit, and I'm just, let me get some air. And I see an old guy on a trike, old broken down trike. And the guy had to be, upwards of 60. And so I went and I asked him, I'm like, hey, how much to go here? And so he gave me a price that I was expecting, and it was reasonable. So I jumped in his trike and took off on all the guys in the line, blah, blah, blah. So a few days later, every time I'd step out of the hotel, I'd come out of the hotel, walk down the hill and to the beach area, the restaurants and stuff. And every day I'm walking down the hill, trike, trike. And there's like 6 or 8 guys in a line there, and every single one of them has to yell at you. You say no, the next one yells. No, the next one yells. And, I've had this happen in a lot of different places, but in those like touristy small areas like that, it's really bad. And I lost my temper one day, and I think this was actually, it may have been Puerto Galera. It may have been another city, but, I remember walking out the hotel, and they're trike, trike, trike. And this one guy, steps out into the street to approach me, and he's yelling trike like I'm deaf. And I was like, no, I don't want a fucking trike. I know where the fucking trikes are. I know to get the one in the front. Do you see me every day? Do you think if I don't know how to get a trike, you think I'm that dumb? Are you calling me stupid? And so the next day, right on course, step out the door, all the same guys lined up, all the same chuckleheads. Trike, sir, trike. And I don't go on vacation to get yelled at. I don't travel to get yelled at. So it's kind of funny because the loudest guys are usually the ones trying to rip you off too. So another time, in fact, this was this year, Bucharest was a horrible experience for me. I went to Bucharest, Romania. I was very excited to go there. There's a lot of things I wanted to see and do. I got a hotel right in the downtown, old town. I was super excited. I got a good rate. Everything was lining up. I got good flights. It looked to be like a really perfect little window opened up, and I slipped in, got some great rates, and was able to go to Bucharest. And I was so excited about it. So I get to the hotel, no problems, late at night. I get there like, 11 or 12 at night. I check in, 10, or maybe it was like 10. Yeah, because it was just before midnight. I'm going to run down the street. I asked the guy at the front desk, where's a good place to get some quick eats, right? Because I hadn't eaten. And the airport travel was long, but I was hungry. I wanted to eat before I went to bed. So he gives me directions. I step out the door, I head down this, it's like a walking street type situation. And it was just it was worse than most walking streets I've been to. I haven't been to Thailand, but like the walking street in the Philippines or any other place I've been, it was just horrible. And horrible in the sense that there's people yelling at you, cat callers, which is fine, right? But then they'd have these cute girls come up and stand in front of you and they corner you. So like there'd be, 2 of them right here. And they wouldn't let you pass. So you try to go around them, they wouldn't let you pass. And a couple times they grabbed me. And this little tiny one, it was funny because I'm walking right down the center and she runs out in front of me and stops. I step to the right, she steps to her left, to stay in front of me. I take 2 steps the other way, she takes 2 steps with me. And I look left and right to see what the hell's going on, right? And there's a couple cops over there. I said, are you going to let me pass, or what are you doing here? Am I not allowed down here because I'm white, or because I'm a tourist, or, because I'm American? You're not going to let me pass because I'm American, or you're just trying to block my way? And the cops, like, did this. I was loud enough to make not a scene, but to be heard. And when I came back, and for the next 2 days, that little young lady, dressed very provocatively, she would come right up and stand, as close as she could without standing in front of me. And, a couple times brush shoulders with me and stuff, but she wouldn't stand in front of me. And so I'll try to get down this walking street, and every restaurant had 1 or 2 girls. They come out and do the same thing, plus the bars there, same thing. And then there's guys trying to, take you off to clubs. There's guys trying to do this. It was just a nightmare. And it was a real learning curve for me. This was like where I really had a moment of clarity. So 2 things happened. In the middle of the day, right? So this was most common at night. Daytime it would happen, but it was most common at night. And so here's a couple funny stories. So one, I got my headphones in, I got my AirPods in, right? And I'm listening to a program I downloaded. And I was, again, just going to get some food. I know where I'm going. I'm going to get some food and buy a cigar. And I come out of the hotel, and there's kind of a dry spot there with not a lot of shops or anything for the first 150 meters. And I've got, I'm listening. I'm very intently listening. I'm walking fast. And all of a sudden, I notice there's this guy, sir, sir, sir. And so I like stop, I look over, and over on my side, over here on this side, like, double arm's length away, there's a guy, like, because I'm still walking, and I'm walking pretty fast, and there's this guy, like, trying to keep up with me, and, he's like having to, run, and I don't know what you would call it, like speed walk, and then you slow down and speed walk, and I'm like, what? He's like, sir. And so I stop, I take out my earphones, I put them in my pocket, and I'm like, what? I yell back at him, and he's like, sir, I have girls. I'm like, wait, did you just follow me out of the hotel? Are you chasing me down the street like a dog to tell me you've got girls? Really? You've got girls? Like, where are they? Because I've been all over the world. I haven't found girls anywhere. And it was just like this, and he said some other stuff. He's like, I have a club, I want to take you. I'm like, so you're going to chase me down the street, interrupt my phone call. I wasn't telling the truth there, but it played well. I'm like, so you're going to chase me down the street, interrupt my phone call to tell me you want me to go to a club when I've got something else on my mind. I mean, clearly you see I'm going here, right? You see I'm going this way. What makes you think I want to go to your club? And, we exchanged a few more words, and he finally left me alone. So I go down there, I get my food, right? Next day, middle of the day, I'm trying to walk around, explore the city, right? That's what I love to do. And there was a lot of things I had on my list I wanted to go check out. So I go down the street, I got some food, I wandered around a little bit, and everything's going great. I met some nice people, and I'm standing there on the corner. Sorry, I laugh every time I even like graze by this or flash by this thought. And I'm surprised I left with any teeth. I'll tell you that straight up. So I'm standing on this corner, and again, I'm on my phone, I'm looking at the map, and I'm trying to, like, okay, I went here, I went there, that type of thing, and okay, I want to go there, I want to go there, I want to go see that. And I'm thinking about this in my head, and I'm like trying to plan my route and estimate time. I'm sitting there for a few minutes on my phone, right? And I answered a few text messages, things like that. And all of a sudden I hear these guys, taxi, taxi, sir, you need a taxi. And my MO, and a lot of people give me this advice, but it's something, I came to on my own, is I just ignore people that yell at me. I ignore catcallers, I ignore everything. If you're not standing in front of me saying, hello, sir, excuse me, anything like that, mister, anything a polite, courteous person would do, I just ignore it. And if you're going to stand in front of me and be an asshole, then, I will try very hard not to respond in kind. I usually don't, but sometimes I do, right? So anyway, I'm sitting there, and these guys are literally across the street. And next thing you know, they're standing in front of me. Again, I've got two of them. And they're like, "Sir," and I'm like using my phone. They get so close, like, the privacy on my phone is a concern. So I put my phone to my chest. I'm like, I look up and they're, "Sir, do you need a taxi?" And I'm like, and I lost it. I'm like, "Taxi? Wait, there's a taxi here? Where's the taxi? I haven't seen a taxi since New York. Where's the taxi? Can you show me the taxi? Can I get a picture with the taxi? Can we do selfies with a taxi? Wait, are you taxi drivers? Oh my God, I can't believe there's a taxi." At that point, one guy walks away. The other guy, he's like, "What's going on?" I said, it's funny. Like, you think I'm dumb enough to leave America, take like a dozen flights, live 6 months in Europe, and I don't know how to call a taxi? I don't know to raise my hand and yell taxi? You think I'm that dumb? And now I'm like, because this all spilled out, like, boom. And he said something else, and I'm like, "So you just decided to come over here across the street and interrupt me just because you're bored, or because you want to screw with the tourist? Or why would you do that? Why would you come up to somebody who's clearly busy on their phone and yell in their face for something? I mean, why would I ever even think about getting in a taxi with you to begin with? You just came and yelled at me for, you crossed the street to yell at me. Why would I ever think about getting in your taxi?" It's like, if anything, I'm going to make a note, and if I ever see your taxi, I might key it, or I might just, never get in it. If I call for a taxi and you come, I'll probably just walk away. If I remember your face. I probably won't even remember your face, which is good for you. And at that point, he turned around and walked away. And that was a really bad moment for me. I was really frustrated because the ignoring people there didn't work. I was up and down this street a lot because between the hotel and all the restaurants and shops and places I wanted to go, this was the way to go. And I eventually, started going around it, which was like 3 times the walk and the time. But nobody there would take no for an answer. You would say no, no thank you, no, no thank you, and nobody would take no for an answer. And they would just very aggressive in your face. They would grab you and try to stop you. They would stand in front of you. And then, like I said, these taxi guys, and the guy that followed me down the street, I mean, it was so funny because I saw him like 3 or 4 more times, and he just sits outside the hotel trying to grab people coming out of the hotel. So, one more about Bucharest. So I go up to this restaurant, and they all have the sandwich boards out front, and their menus and stuff. So I go up to this one restaurant. There's nobody there hawking it, so I'm like, let me go check this out. And sure shit, here comes 2 little hotties, super cute girls, and they've got the how do I put this? They've got the melons on display. I don't know how else to say it. They were wearing they looked like they were St. Pauli girls without the German clothes, without the German attire. But they were going to great lengths to show off their chest. And they come up, and I'm like, I just wanted to check out the menu. And they're like, da 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 da. And I said, okay, well, can I just read the menu? Da 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 da. And so, their English is really good, and they're trying very hard. So we get into a little bit of a conversation, and it was just the funniest thing because, I'm sitting there trying to read the menu and see if there's something I want to try, see if there's something novel, or see if there's something I like and maybe I wanted to try it here. and maybe I would eat then or come back. You know, I had no real plan, but I wanted to, you know, understand the menu, and it was in English. So, you know, I was just looking for little variations that sounded interesting. And they wouldn't let me just read the menu. So all of a sudden, you know, they just start spouting off all these things on the menu that I would never have an interest in eating, much less trying in Bucharest. And it was the funniest thing, and that's such a common theme. You know, every time I go up, not every time, but a lot of times I go up to a menu and somebody will show up and they just start randomly spewing menu items at you, and you're like, okay, you're talking about a bunch of shit that I would never eat or never want to eat or never order, and all you're doing is interrupting me. Okay, I'm leaving, right? And that's usually what I do, is I walk away. So these two girls, again, the wild hair, had to have a little fun with them. So I turned and I looked at them and I said, you know, like every restaurant I go by has all these, they always have cute girls like you out here, really hot girls. I mean, you guys are very pretty. But if the food is so bad, you need such pretty girls to come out here and show off their chest to sell the food. Why would I eat there? I mean, if the food is good, it'll sell itself. If the food is bad, you hire really pretty girls, you get them to dress like they're going to a club, and you get them to try and sucker or suck people in to have bad food, right? And they both looked at me like, oh, I've never heard this argument. And it was funny. We went round and round a few times, and I eventually walked away and never went back, and I'll never go back. You know, and later that night, you know, I was outside the hotel, and you can't smoke in the little patio area. So I went across the street, I'm smoking my cigar, and it was nonstop. I'm just standing there outside of the hotel, smoking my cigar, trying to have a relaxing, like, you know, before I went in for the evening. Just had a cocktail at the little patio, and nonstop people just coming up, you know, and there's a cluster of them over there, and they would all like take turns. One would come over. I have a club. I have girls. I have naked girls. I've got 30 girls. I've got drugs. I've got this. I've got that. And it's like, you saw me say no to the previous 5 people. What makes you think your sales pitch is any better? And this one lady wouldn't leave me alone. She's like, well, and she just wouldn't leave me alone. I flat out told her, I just want to be left alone. And she spoke very good English. And she was just persistent on either getting me to her club or harassing me out of there. And I told her as much. I said, you know, it really seems like you're just trying to harass the shit out of me until I go to your club or I leave. And I don't appreciate it. And that's where, you know, the cigar trick I learned there. Going up and down the street, if I was carrying a big cigar and when they'd get in my face, I just, you know, let a mouthful of smoke go in there. And so I'm blowing smoke in her face and she's still trying to chat me. And the thing I realized talking to her, and I eventually told her this after like half an hour my cigar was finished. She wouldn't leave me alone. Even though I asked directly, like, hey, why don't you just, you know, leave me alone? Why are you so insistent on, you know, harassing me? Oh, I'm not harassing you. I said, well, you are, but, you know, and you don't want to answer the question. So good on you. And, you know, and I was having that conversation with her, but the thing I realized is this is all learned behavior. So whether it's the trike drivers in the Philippines, the restaurant and club hawkers in Bucharest, it's all learned behavior. And it's important for me to understand that they do that because they're getting, you know, people without any self-respect or without any backbone or without any whatever, you know, to pay them in some way, shape, or form. You know, there's a trike, last 3 weeks or whatever, I was in Angeles, you know, there's these trikes, they park in such a way where you can't pass them. You know, I'm walking on the right side of the street, and they park in such a way you can't pass on the right, and you can't pass on the left without like crossing the white line into the street. And so if they were to pull up or back a little bit, you know, there would be room to pass them on the right, but they intentionally hit that pinch point where you can't pass them on the right. So you have to walk out in the street. And they intentionally do that to get your attention and to, you know, make it so you can't just walk by. Because the typical answer when you're dealing with hawkers, and somebody was even, I was asking about Hong Kong, and he was very, very, you know, went into the whole long tirade about this, about, you know, don't make eye contact, keep your head down, like, and I don't like walking around with my head down or looking at the ground, or I don't like doing that. And so I have a real struggle in these areas because, you know, simply just walking around like this, it triggers the feeding frenzy of these hawkers. And so, you know, it's just funny to me, you know, and it's a issue that I generate. But even so, even, you know, when you're walking with your head down and doing everything you can to, you know, ignore people, they still, you know, in some areas are just so persistent, and it's because it works, right? They, you know, it's like the hawkers at the beach, you know, they only need to make 2 or 3 sales and they can eat lunch. And so they're going to do everything they can to harass you until either you sell or either you buy, or, you know, I mean, that's their choice, right? Is they're doing it to make money. And it's the same thing in Bucharest. It's the same thing in Porto Galera. You know, all these people that yell at you incessantly, it's because, you know, people aren't strong enough to say no. You know, they don't have enough self-respect or whatever to say no. And that moment in Bucharest really opened my eyes, because it was the realization that these guys are out there trying to, you know, sell women and drugs, because that's typically what single men by themselves go there to do. And, you know, I want no part of it. But it really, and I've had the same thing in Vegas. This isn't just a traveling foreign thing. I was outside the Link one night. I was walking back. In fact, I can tell you exactly when it was. It was July 3rd, 2018. So I'm walking back to the Link. It's like, I don't know, 1 in the morning. And these 2 girls come up, and you know, and they're kind of approaching me from the side. I said, hello, you know, just trying to greet, not trying to create a conversation. It's like, hi. And next thing you know, I pass, and then they come up, you know, one on each side, and they both reach around and grab my crotch. And I'm like, excuse me? And I stopped. And they're like, sweetie, take us to your room. I'm like, no. And, you know, I pushed them off. One of them tried to put her hand back down there. I was like, no. And then, you know, and then I'm thinking, where's my wallet? And all that stuff is obviously, you know, I'm not new to walking around at night. And there was nothing they could easily grab. But it happens everywhere. The thing for me is, 1, walk away whenever possible. 2, know it and know how to identify it and just, you know, adjust. So Bucharest, like I said, I eventually started walking around that walking street. I stayed in the hotel more. I spent way less money, and I didn't see, you know, but maybe 10% of the sites I wanted to see. It was just too much of a hassle for me to go out and deal with that. And the ironic thing for me was, like, I was walking down the street behind this couple. There was 2 guys and a girl, and they didn't get asked once. Nobody talked to them. And we're dressed pretty similar. You know, I wasn't wearing this loud shirt, but, you know, so it didn't appear to be like a dressing issue. And if anything, I mean, they were dressed much nicer, like they had way more money. than I did. And, you know, I saw that a couple times. And so part of it is being single, and part of it is, you know, understanding that I will have as a single traveler, as a foreign guy, as, you know, whatever, I will have a distinctly different experience than other people who are couples or other people who live there or things like that. And just to know that going into it and be aware that, you know, what struggles I have and how to, you know, deal with those before I get there really makes it easy. So like I'm here in Kuala Lumpur, and I went out to the night market, and one of the guys at the hotel I was staying at last week was like, you know, it's basically a Chinatown. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me go check it out. And, you know, a couple of people I'd talked to, they're like, hey, you got to check out this market at night. It's, I forgot the name of the market. It's not Bukit, it's, I can't remember. Because I'm by Chowkit, which is more of a local market. This one is like a Chinatown market. It's right by the Central station, or, you know, one stop away from Central. I can't remember the name, but I'll throw a picture up of me by the thing. Anyway, so I go through there, and it's super crowded. It's, you know, I'm having a good time actually, just kind of poking around, bobbing around, seeing everything for sale, seeing people barter and stuff. I actually had a really good time there, but I'm walking through some stalls, and a guy reached out and grabbed my bicep, like he was trying to spin me and stop me, you know, because there's like, it's super crowded, and there's like a little lane, or, you know, a flow, like a river or stream of people just going, and he grabbed my arm to stop me. And I turned and looked at him. I'm like, and I looked at, you know, I made eye contact with him. I looked at his hand, and I looked back to his eyes. I'm like, don't touch me. And he let go, and his eyes went big, you know, like, who are you? You know, shocked that I would speak to him that way. But having those boundaries, you know, and the fact that he feels it's okay to do that, feels that's normal, feels it's acceptable, you know, it speaks more to the average tourist here who doesn't set those boundaries. And, you know, you can't change the world, can't expect the world to, you know, be the same for you, or, you know, it'll never be your ideal. But I'm still not afraid to set those boundaries with people. And, you know, if somebody's reaching for me, you know, no, you don't do that. You know, and you want to be, I try very hard to be careful about swatting people's hands away, because that can be seen as aggressive, but, you know, so I always verbally, you know, give them a no or whatever. I give them some sort before I physically remove their hands. But there's been many times, like that time in Vegas, where, you know, I had to physically put my hands on somebody and remove their hands from my body. And I've had a few times where people were persistent, and, you know, and you grab the wrist and you start to roll the wrist like you're going to put them in an arm bar, and that usually wakes them up real quick. You know, when you take a firm grasp on their wrist, people seem to get the point very quickly. And it also, you know, from a practical sense, if you've got a good grip on their wrist, a good, you know, firm grip on their wrist, it gives you a lot more outs, because a push, a pull, and then, you know, move your feet quickly and you're gone. You know, it's a good way to protect yourself. But again, you know, I haven't been in a fight in years and have no intention of being in a fight. So getting back to it, you know, I don't go on vacation to get yelled at, and I struggle when I do get yelled at incessantly. You know, once or twice is not an issue. The walking down the sidewalk's another issue I may get into at another time. But the reason I bring this up is they're kind of cultural issues, right? It's kind of a cultural issue, but it's more, this is the way the world is. And you may not have experienced this. I definitely didn't experience it like, you know, this a little bit in Vegas, but not like I have in other places. And being able to walk into a neighborhood and or a situation, a walking street or a mall, and understand that, after a few encounters that this is what it is. And then you have to make the decision. Do I walk away, or am I going to stay and play, or stay and do my thing, or whatever, right? And to me, it's very important. And, I can't stress this enough. If you're at all getting frustrated or angry, walk away, because you don't want to get in a situation like I got into in Barrio Barreto. So Barrio Barreto in the Philippines, Subic Bay, I'm walking down the street late at night, and there's hardly anyone out. I was invited to this party. So I went to this party. I was walking back to the hotel, and I decided I wanted to go get some snacks. I knew there's some street vendor selling some snacks and some water. So I was going to go get a couple bottles of water and some snacks. And I'm walking down the street, and it's pretty isolated, pretty abandoned at this point in time. And, it had to be midnight or later. Nothing ever good happens after midnight, except once in a while some street food. So, I've been to Barrio Barreto a few times. I've never felt unsafe there. I've never felt in any danger, never felt any slightest, even concern about even pickpockets there. So in retrospect, like thinking about it, there was a trike going this way. And again, I'm on autopilot. So, trikes go by and yell at me, or they're across the road, and I just don't respond. I don't even hear it, most of the time, because I've just kind of narrowed my focus to what's in front of me and, what I'm interacting with on a more personal level. So if somebody's driving by, hollering things, I don't even register it. So what I'm assuming is this guy went by what happened. This guy went by going the other direction, and I didn't say no, because all of a sudden, you get that sense, and I turn around, and there is a trike like 2 feet off my heels, with it, it's creeping up, and I'm off the road, well off the road, as far off the road as I can get, and there's probably enough room for 2 trikes, side by side off the road where I was at, and he is like right up behind me, like he's going to run me over. So I jump up against the wall, and I'm like, what? And he's like, trike? I'm like, no, get out of here, go. And he said something, I'm like, don't follow me. Because I was angry, I was frustrated, I was startled. And so he pulls off, and, I thought, okay, great, this is over, right? Well, then he stops, and he starts yelling at me about disrespecting the Philippines. I'm like, I'm not trying to disrespect you, and I'm trying to de-escalate it the whole time. And I, was very conscious of my tone at that point in time, because I did not want to do anything to escalate it. Well, next thing you know, he's getting off his trike, and he's walking towards me, and I'm backing up, my hands are up. I'm like, I don't want any problems, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And he's yelling at me, and he's getting closer and closer, and he finally said something I could turn on him. And, I was hoping this would happen. It doesn't always happen, but he said, because he was going on and on about this and this and that, and he's like, I'm going to call the police. And then that was my opportunity, because then I got very loud. I was like, yes, call the fucking police, call the police. And I got, probably 3 or 4 times louder than he was yelling at me. And that got attention of a lot of people down the street. So 100 meters away, heads are turning, 150 meters away, people are turning around going, what's going on? And I'm yelling, call the police, call the fucking police, please call the police. And he's persistent, he's not getting it, he's persistent. And he's coming at me in a very methodical way where he was escalating to violence. And I got the impression that, within probably 3 minutes or 4 minutes, if things didn't change, we were going to be rolling around on the ground, because he was on that path where he was talking himself into violent action. And if you've been been older around the block, you know what I'm talking about. It's a pretty clear path when somebody starts they're on that rant and they're trying to talk themselves into doing something. And it's clear and obvious when you've been through it, a couple times. So I got super loud, yelling, call the police, please call the fucking police, right? And, he's progressing to, I'm going to get you, my friends are going to fuck you up, and da. I'm like, and I'm just, call the police, right? Let's let the police sort this out. So thankfully, a bunch of people showed up. Not a bunch, probably, 4 that I remember specifically. And the first guy to show up was a white guy speaking, I presume, Tagalog very well. And I'm just like, hey. And what I deciphered is I didn't appropriately say no when he was going the other way, yelling at me on his trike. So in hindsight, I ran through this many times in my head. And the best I can figure is I didn't appropriately say no because I was just ignoring him when he's yelling at me, driving his trike the other way, yelling at me on the street. So then he circles around behind me and he wants to creep up behind me and then get, danger close, like, literally, I could have grabbed his handlebars with half a step. He was that close behind me. That front tire was, way, way too close, especially at night. And so then he's creeping up behind me to ask me if I want to ride or something. Instead of coming up alongside me, it didn't make sense to me, right? But that's the best I can figure is I didn't appropriately say no because he kept going on and I disrespected him and he was, the words he was using, his English wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't bad. So anyway, this guy comes up, he's talking to him in I presume Tagalog, and then I cross the street and beat feet down. Now here's the thing is the rest of the time there, I was there for, another night, constantly looking over my shoulder because he made direct threats. He said, I'm going to fuck you up. My friends are going to fuck you up. So I don't know if the next trike coming down the street is going to drop a brick in the back of my head while it's driving by or not. I don't know if I get in a trike, if he's going to speed off to some back alley with his friends waiting for me, right? And these are all real threats today that weren't there 5 years ago. And, I spent a few nights in and out of the bars, drinking, meeting people, having fun, and every single, unprovoked, unsolicited, no conversation, every single waitress I had warned me about getting stabbed and warned me about losing my iPhone. First night out, I had an iPhone in my hand, a mini. And, and I'm pretty confident I'm not going to lose my iPhone. I've lost it enough to where I'm pretty well trained. Zippered pockets, the whole 9 yards, right? But when you have every waitress telling you, be careful not to yell at the guys selling drugs because they will stab you. Be careful of this and watch out, you have an iPhone, they're trying to steal iPhones now. I'd never had that experience in the Philippines in 18, 19, or 20. Never anything even close. In fact, I can tell a half dozen stories where I lost my phone and people went to went very far out of their way to get it back to me for no good reason. A couple of them even refused when I tried to give them a reward or a thank you gift. And it was my burner local phone, but still, who does that in this day and age, right? And that was my experience and impression when I left the Philippines. So now to have this turn around, have trike drivers turn around on the street and then follow you. Now the next night I was out, it was much earlier, but I had that happen twice where trike driver going the other way would turn around and creep up behind you. And I mean, it's a loud, noisy street. You're not going to hear a trike idling up behind you a lot of times. And one of them, again, you know, I turned around and, you know, I could have grabbed his handlebars without taking a step. And I don't know what their mentality is. I don't know why any man would think that's a smart thing to do, but it's what they're doing there. And the real concern is when somebody's that volatile, you never know how petty or how, you know, how long they're going to hold that grudge, right? You know, obviously I don't look like a local, right? You know, even the local expats, most don't have a beard. So it's real easy for, you know, to identify myself. And that's true a lot of places I go. You know, you're about the only place I've ever really fit in was in a couple places in Poland. People would come up and talk to me in Polish like I was a local, and I'm like, English? And they laugh and like, no, and walk off. So maybe I'm part Polish, I don't know. But, you know, every other place I've been, I'm clearly a tourist or a foreigner, especially in the Philippines. So, you know, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about walk away. Even sometimes when you try to walk away, you know, you're going to be left in a situation that is not the best situation. And how are you going to handle that? You know, what's your plan for escape? The ironic thing is the next night I was in, or after that incident, I dropped into a bar where I'd met the manager, and somebody was like, hey, carry a flashlight and pepper spray. And I don't have pepper spray, probably never will. But I do carry flashlights, and I've talked about that in the past. In fact, I got one sitting right here on the desk charging. And so I carry these in my travel kit, and a lot of it's just, you know, not for self-defense. Oh, shoot. That pepper got me. Been craving salt, so I've been eating these fish, and that pepper just nailed me. A little tiny pepper flake or something, I don't know. But maybe it's because I was talking about pepper spray. Now it feels like somebody pepper sprayed the back of my throat. So anyway, these are great little tools. And the next night, you know, a guy at the bar was telling me, the local expat was telling me, carry it, your flashlight. So I brought my flashlight in my pocket the next night. And I was going to that bar, and here comes a trike, and he comes sneaking up behind me. You know, I turn around and hit him with a flashlight. And honestly, at this point, I was looking to make sure he didn't have anything in his hand. Like, I didn't, you know, care so much about anything other than, is this guy here to hurt me because the other guy sent him, or is this the guy from last night? You know, that was what was going through my mind. And so, you know, I kept the light on him to make sure I could see his hands. And, you know, and then this guy's yelling at me to turn the light off. And I'm like, leave me alone. You know, drive away, leave me alone. And, you know, that particular guy even had words for me when I came out of the bar. He was sitting there at the little food vendor. I went to get some chicken on a stick. And he was sitting there giving me a hard time about the flashlight. And I'm like, don't sneak up on people, you know? And he didn't get it. So you can't change the world, right? So am I going back to Barrio Barreto? Not anytime soon. Walking Street on Angeles, going to be way more careful than I ever thought I would be if I go back. And the Philippines overall, if that's happening there, it makes me wonder what's happening in the provinces or other places I want to go. And overall, do I want to go live in a country where I'm going to get yelled at all day, every day? that's the key question on my mind. That's the key issue I have, is do I want to go live someplace where I'm going to get yelled at all day, every day? Or is there a better option for me? Bali, I had the same experience in I was only there a few days, and I was in a very specific, like Ubud, or not Ubud, I forgot what it's called, but kind of I forgot the name of the area, but everybody said, yeah, that's not a good representation of Bali when I was there. So, I'm not really sure where I'm going to go. Definitely going back to the Philippines through New Year's, go see some friends. But I'm not sure the Philippines holds the same attractive appeal to me that it had, a few years ago, or even 6 months ago, even a month ago. A month ago, I wasn't re-exposed to all this, and I never had the feeling of being unsafe in the Philippines. And this time, I distinctly felt very unsafe in numerous times. Not as unsafe as California, but there are areas where I felt totally comfortable walking all hours of day and night, and not even a concern. And now, even in daylight, it was, even before that trike driver, there were other incidents, more minor. I had a guy come up, and I caught him casing me like he was trying to pickpocket me, but he's a young male adult, early 20s at the oldest, definitely a muscular build, right? And I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to say this, not remember it, because I remember it very clearly. But I'm walking down the street, he comes up, I see him in a reflection, just happen to catch him in a reflection. He's coming up behind me, and I kind of turn and I catch him, and he's about a half an arm's distance off this shoulder. And so I'm like, oh, that's weird. I make eye contact with him, and he kind of backs off and stops and does this, and he's looking around. And he's the only guy wearing a mask on the street that's a t-shirt wrapped around his face. It's not an actual mask. He's got a t-shirt, not even cut up, just wrapped around his face and tied back. And it's, noon, 1 o'clock. I was out just, walking for exercise. And so I go, another 20 steps, and, the little alarm in the head's going off, and I turn the other way, and he's coming at me from this side. And so this time I turn and face him square, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he looks at me, his eyes go big, and he's still got the mask on. His eyes go big, and he's like, and then just turns, and now he's walking forward past me. So he came up behind me on this side, circled back around to the other side, and he comes up this way. And, thankfully something in my head said turn around. But, it's middle of the day, and he's making 2 passes at me. I'm sure he was looking for, something hanging out of a pocket. And I've never seen anybody there, in the 3 weeks I was there, besides him. Well, that's not true. There was one other guy down a side street wearing a t-shirt wrapped around his face like a cowboy gangster. But, yeah, so the Philippines definitely is not as safe as I remember it, not as safe as, my romanticized fantasy of the memory has recorded it. I said that all wrong, right? But, you always romanticize and fantasize about how great things are until you come back, and then you're like, oh, well, this fucking sucks. So I'm not sure I want to go back to the Philippines long term, and trying to sort out where. But, I'm not traveling to get yelled at. I don't like getting yelled at. And I don't see the point in yelling at people. Like, if I wanted to I traveled around the world. I know how to order a taxi or a trike. I'm walking through a bazaar. I know how to buy things. If I see something that interests me, I know how to buy it, and you do a good job displaying it. You don't need to grab my arm and try to stop me. That's not going to get you a sale. And the problem is there's so many people out there with so little self-respect that these taxi drivers, trike drivers, vendors think that that's a good way to get a sale because it works, right? It works. It works for them. And so they get their sales and then they do it to everybody else. So how do you stop this? You don't. How do you deal with it? You walk away when you can. The problem is you can't always walk away. And sometimes things are going to escalate. And how are you going to deal with it? What are you going to do? And are you willing to put up with that, every day in your future? I feel better. Thank you. Have a great day.